Welcome to Under the Lens. Come and enjoy an extraordinary, raw, and unfiltered podcast that delivers debate, discussions, and interviews about film, pop culture, and everything in between. Here is your host, film critic and journalist, Byron Lafayette.
I'm thrilled today to have as my guest Emmanuel Noisette. He is a film critic and the creator of E-Man's Movie Reviews, and he's also a member of the Critics' Choice Association. He is the founder and creator of the Recast T'Challa movement, and this has been featured on all the major news channels and has been exploding into the public zeitgeist lately. Now, as a supporter of the Recast T'Challa movement, I just knew that I had to get Emmanuel on the show to chat about it and why he created this movement and just what has been causing it to explode. So thanks for coming on, Emmanuel.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
What made you start the Recast T'Challa movement?
Yeah, so, as we know, it was the very first thing was the passing of Chadwick Boseman. This was like in late August of 2020. And I mean, it was devastating. I was a fan of his professionally and personally. And when I heard the news, it crushed me. And I think it did for a lot of people as well. And while grieving during that process, I want to say like just in December, so just a couple months after, Marvel Studios, Kevin Feige, they came out and they made the announcement that because of his passing and because his presence as T'Challa, King T'Challa, was so great and transcended every iteration, they were not going to recast the role of T'Challa. And that was it. It was a full stop, period. There was no conditional statement said with that. It's not like they said, we haven't thought about it. There are no plans to recast, or this is only for Black Panther 2. Like, they just said, we're done. We're not recasting T'Challa. And that right there left me with two options. I was like, wait a minute. If you're not going to recast the role, are you going to give him like the Paul Walker treatment in the Fast and Furious franchise and just have him exist in the background and we never see him? Or, oh my God, you guys are going to kill his character off, And when that possibility came to mind, it really became unsettling for me. It was disturbing. So I took some time. I did like a huge deep dive in a lot of Chadwick Boseman's interviews, a lot of the things that his friends, his family, basically anything I could get my hands on to kind of give me a little bit better perspective of who Chadwick Boseman is, what he thought, how he felt about acting, and how he felt about the roles that he took on. And in that discovery, I started stumbling upon some things that he said. So, for example, when he was losing weight and there was all this speculation like, ooh, what's going on with him? He had texted journalist Roland Martin and said, when it comes to acting, I want people to see the roles and not me. And it was at that point I was like, oh my gosh, like this guy is not egotistical to the point where he thinks he owns every role. He views these roles as being bigger than himself. And the more I'm learning about how he considers himself, and this is his quote too, he considers himself an artist, not an actor. I'm like, well, it makes even less sense to stop any art that this artist created or to destroy any art that he created as a way to tribute to him or as a way to honor him. Because if we're talking about doing anything to honor someone or celebrate someone, I think the very least we can do is make sure that it's actually consistent with what that person worked towards and what they believed. And as time progressed, as we started getting more reports and more information, we started finding out that Marvel Studios, according to Nate Moore, the VP executive producer, he had said that when they learned about the passing of Chadwick Boseman, um, they made the decision within minutes not to recast. And I think it's very important for people to hear this, because a lot of times people were making assumptions that Marvel did, like, I don't know, all this due diligence or whatnot. And maybe they did, but all I'm saying is it's not public record that they have. They haven't said it, and it's not documented, it's not reported. They didn't even check with the family, like, at all. And this was kind of like a gut reaction from them not to recast. And I also want to make it very clear that I'm not trying to paint them in any type of negative light. I think Marvel Studios is doing what they feel is best. And I'm just saying, I think you guys all should have taken more time with this really tough decision, because Marvel Studios is still human. They have emotional blind spots, and it's understandable. But I think they made this decision prematurely without considering the long-term impact of what happens when you don't recast. And I apologize for going on this long rant with this, but it's that complex. And we're really just scratching the surface here with this. Um, we also started getting reports about how Chadwick Boseman, in his final depictions, his final pieces of work, which we got in the What If animated series, the director and writer both talked about how excited Chadwick Boseman was to give us more T'Challa. He wanted the world to see T'Challa even without the mantle. And I want to emphasize that, because a lot of times people think, well, can't we give the mantle to someone else? This is not a conversation about who should be the next Black Panther. It's about the significance of T'Challa. That character was literally created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby to be the embodiment of Black representation when there wasn't any in mainstream depiction. In the 1960s, civil rights era, we know how bad it was back then when it
Indeed.
came to race. T'Challa was created because there was a void. He was like the Jackie Robinson of Black superheroes at that time, mainstream. And that's what T'Challa is. He was meant to he was not created to be a stepping stone for other characters. He was created to be a cornerstone. And you don't replace cornerstones. You build around them. You build other cornerstones, right? So this whole idea, this concept of like, well, let's just get rid of T'Challa and retire him like it's sports and we're hanging up a jersey, it's nonsense, because that's not how it works in entertainment. When we talk about not recasting people, that's how characters and actors get forgotten. I would challenge even your audience right now, if you're under the age of 30 and without Google searching this, do you know about Mantis? Played by Carl Lumley, by the way.
Fantastic
Probably not.
actor.
Fantastic actor,
Mhm.
but the role of Mantis, that superhero too, by the way. Do you know about it? The Bionic Man. Can anyone name who he was? Like, again, for younger generations, probably not, because the role has never been recast. You don't see people talking about these characters or these roles when they're not recast. It's ironic because it's actually the opposite that's true. Recasting is what keeps actors relevant. It's what keeps characters popular. Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, James Bond, these characters would not be where they are today if they had not been constantly recasted over and over and over. So for me, I'm like, if we're really sitting here talking about let's honor Chadwick Boseman, then to me, I'm like, why don't we make him the beginning of a legacy rather than the end of one? Because the number one way to kill a legend is to stop telling their story. And T'Challa has a lot of story to tell. Chadwick knew this. This is why he was signed on all the way up for Black Panther 3, despite his medical condition. So for me, it was like, you know what? It makes less sense to take this character away where this guy who's fighting cancer in his last days was still pushing to show the world more of T'Challa. It to me, it just makes the most sense. Let's keep that work going. I've never heard the concept of let's get rid of an artist's work to honor them. Like, what are we gonna do? Burn the Mona Lisa? Like,
It's true.
hey, that's tribute. Like, no, we don't do that. The art always outlives the artist. That's the point
It's
because of what it represents.
Yeah. It's true. I mean, would we still be talking about Michael Keaton as Batman if he had done one film and then there
Right.
was no more Batman films ever?
Exactly.
Probably
Exactly.
not. If
Yeah.
and I also think back almost to like way back in the day with The Shadow with Alec Baldwin.
And I
It's
love
like,
that too.
oh, I
I
do too.
love the shadow.
Yeah, it's great character. I really enjoyed the movie.
Yeah.
And but it's true. It's like you said. Does anybody under 30 remember The Shadow who's not a film buff? Probably
Right.
not.
Right.
And and what you were saying is so true. I think about Chadwick that he did view himself as an artist, because I remember reading about him and just his dedication to the role,
Hmm.
that he really did view T'Challa as an honor that he was playing this character.
Yeah.
And I remember reading about how like you said, even into his last days, he was planning on going and starting the workout to be able
Yeah.
to be T'Challa again.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a lot of people who would have advanced cancer who would be thinking, hey, I'm gonna still go out and deliver this to
Right.
the audiences. It was incredible.
Right.
And it's also, I feel like part of the reason why I wanted him to
Hmm.
be recast, and still do, is I saw with a lot of my friends, and just the people online and on social media, the response
Hmm.
when he played that character, that seeing black youth and kids seeing kind of like the wonder in their eyes of like, oh wow, this guy is so badass and cool.
Hmm. Hmm.
you know
Hmm.
and I remember as a kid, just like sometimes some of my first when I was first exposed to superheroes, and just like that wonder and excitement,
Yeah.
and it just kind of like, it pains me a little bit to think of future audiences not seeing that with this character, because like you said, it's so much more than a mantle.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that because, um, you know, being a little black kid trying to dress up as your favorite superhero, I'll be honest, it was awkward. I would see my friends, white friends,
Mhm.
dressing up as Captain America, Wolverine, Batman, Superman, and it looked normal
Mhm.
because those characters look like them.
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
did not look the same. It didn't feel the same for me.
Mhm.
You know, um, when you have a black kid dressing up as a predominantly white character, it's awkward. Now, today, yeah, we got the multiverse, so we can kind of get away with that. But back then, not so much. And when I discovered T'Challa, and I was like, wait a minute, there's a superhero out there that isn't like, an anti-hero or a vigilante or anything like that, but like he's a hero. Like, he's rich, the richest guy ever. He's the smartest guy on the planet, or one of the few, and he's kicking the Fantastic Four's butt. What? This is blowing my mind. That was the first time I felt seen. Like it's indescribable how to articulate what it feels like to be represented when you didn't even know that you were not represented. That's the crazy thing. It didn't dawn on me as a little black kid that I don't have black heroes.
Mhm.
I mean, my first comic book was like Spider-Man, and
Mhm.
I love Spider-Man, but it didn't dawn on me that like, oh my gosh, nobody looks like me. I just kind of normalized it that, oh well, like there are no heroes that look like me, but then when you finally get exposed to it, it's it's this weird awakening. And it's funny you mentioned the kids and stuff too. My coworker who has white, children and stuff, she was just telling me how her grandchild, his favorite superhero is T'Challa. He dresses up as T'Challa. And I'm like, that is awesome.
That's
That
great.
is awesome. And that just shows you the impact that, like, even this African king still can be the hero for other non-black kids too. You know, and I'm like, we really have to be so careful when we talk about no one else can play this role. You know what? Just wait until the MCU reboots, which is nonsense. The MCU does not reboot.
No,
They don't
it's,
even reboot the comics.
it's
Okay,
true.
let's be honest. But what you're really saying at that point is, let's wait 5-10 years before we can put this hero back on there. So sorry, kids, you're gonna have to now become a teenager just to see your hero again, or an adult, because us adults, we're too emotionally vested to deal with this.
Mm.
So sorry, kids, we're gonna take your fictional heroes away from you because we can't deal. And I think that is a travesty. I think that is incredibly selfish. I understand it from an emotional standpoint, but I'm like, can we please have some empathy and sympathy for the young children that already went through a tragedy of losing Chadwick Boseman? There were videos of kids crying their eyes out because they were like, oh my gosh, Black Panther died, when they saw the real life character pass away, the real life actor. Why do we want to potentially, let me say that, why do we potentially want to re-traumatize children by taking now their fictional superhero away? We're not superheroes created for children to be role models and stuff. Like, what are we doing here?
That's very true, because I remember, and this is a minute example, but I remember how sad I was when when Paul Walker passed away.
Yeah.
And I'd grown up with all of his movies and his stuff, and loved his roles and everything. And I remember how relieved I was when they said, we're not killing him off,
Right.
in
Right.
7. He's going to get a happy ending. And and just that kind of emotional side of me, and who was connected to that character, really liked that I didn't have to go through his death
Right.
again, on
Right.
screen. So I totally understand. And, like you said, from an emotional standpoint, it's understandable to have a knee jerk reaction, I think.
Of course.
But then, once that moment has passed, I think, you do need to consider, that representation matters
It
for
does.
everybody. And it's kind of weird because like what you said of how you said that you didn't even realize at first
Yeah.
that you weren't represented until you were. And I had my own slight moment of that, because I grew up, I was dyslexic, and so I always had,
Mm-hmm.
like, trouble reading and with math and everything growing up. And and everybody kind of saying like, oh man, you have like this disability and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of learning to deal with it. And I remember I never really thought of anything of like, oh, whatever, there's there's no one like me on screen. I never thought of that.
Right.
But then I remember I was watching Star Trek Discovery season 2,
Mm-hmm.
and they bring in Spock, and
Mm-hmm.
they show him having these issues, and then they reveal basically that he is the Vulcan version of dyslexia.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I remember that feeling I got, that I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome.
Right. Right. Me
He's a
too. I can relate.
uh-huh.
Yeah.
I totally was able to relate to the character, and I was like, wow, this is a cool, logical, badass, character.
Yeah.
And he's like me, it was cool. And at that moment, I actually really finally understood, the whole representation matters. I feel like I didn't quite understand it before. And at that moment, I fully understood it. And I was like, okay, this I get it. It's
Right.
like,
Right. Right. Right.
but I think it's incredible too, because over the last couple of weeks, I've been noticing, that the recast T'Challa movement has been growing. It's been,
Yeah.
the gas pedal has been hit. That I saw just the other day that Chadwick's brother had
Mm-hmm.
weighed in, and that he
Mm-hmm.
had said that he supported recasting him.
Yeah. And that was huge. I mean, I think that right there was probably, I mean, all I can say is, like, I felt a sense of validation, because I knew this was going to be a bumpy ride, a bumpy long ride. Because I can tell you right now, when when I hit 1,000 signatures on the Recast T'Challa petition, people were like, "Oh my gosh, why are you so disrespectful? What is wrong with you? You're a monster." And I'm like, You didn't even read my petition. Like, you don't even know what I'm saying, but you're reacting to the hashtag, right? Like, as if I'm, championing, like, let's just completely forget about Chadwick. Let's just throw some random person in there and give me my comic book stories. No, not at all. Matter of fact, my petition specifically states it doesn't have to be immediate. We don't, and you can give the mantle to somebody else. Give it to Shuri. It's fine. It's really okay. All I'm saying is, can we not kill T'Challa for the third time,
Mhm.
even if it's off screen? Because at the end of the day, if they end up going that route, I don't care how they want to spin it. You got two problems. One, the totality of T'Challa's story at that point is that he just opened up Wakanda and he died 3 times. That's it. The second biggest problem that not a lot of people are talking about or probably even want to think about, when you think about the average person, I would say the majority of people at this point, because we know Chadwick passed away, the majority of people are going into Black Panther 2 just to see what is the MCU going to do without Chadwick. Are you guys going to honor him? Are you going to kill him off? You want to know what's going to happen. If Marvel goes through and kills the character off again, whether it's intentional or not, despite whatever good intentions they may have, you will inevitably be profiting off of his death.
Mm.
And that largely comes by this concept of tying the character and the actor together. When you tie T'Challa and Chadwick together, whatever you do to T'Challa, you're doing to Chadwick. And that's the sticky situation. I'm like, Marvel, please avoid this. Again, this is why I went back and looked at what Chadwick was saying and how he viewed the characters as being bigger than him. There's no way this guy would say nobody else can play Thurgood Marshall or Jackie Robinson except for me. Like, that's mine. No way he would believe that. So we shouldn't carry that same assumption, with the character of T'Challa either. And it's I'm sorry, but like, yeah, if they that is exploiting his death at that point for profit.
No,
It's extremely troubling to even consider that.
no, because I agree, because it is true. A lot of people are going to be very curious. I mean, I remember the curiosity just with Rise of Skywalker. People like, oh,
Right.
well, how are they going to handle Carrie Fisher? Oh,
Right.
and then when they said, oh, we're going to have, she's going to be in the movie, and everyone was like,
Yeah.
and it did drive a lot of people to go and see. I know I was
Yeah.
curious, and I think that is very true, with Black Panther too, and I think that would just be it would just be so tragic,
It
that
would.
and I 100% agree with you. Now, if let's say the announcement, came tomorrow,
Yeah.
that they're going to be recasting him, and
Sure.
the mantle and the character is going to continue to live on. Do you have in your mind, some actors who you feel would be able to step into the role of T'Challa?
Absolutely. I mean, here's the thing, and I want to make sure I emphasize this. I'm not being picky. I don't really care who would take up the role. Um, because the one thing I don't want to do is fall into this mindset that unfortunately a lot of people get into, that only Chadwick can do this role. And when people say that, it's very limiting and debilitating, which Chadwick would agree with in his other interviews. It's debilitating to actors when they hear that only one person can play a certain role, or that there can only be one lead in a movie. Because now what you're essentially saying is that Chadwick was the best actor of all time, and no other Black actor is even remotely qualified to take up that opportunity. And that's very, very, we do not do that with other popular characters. We don't do that with Superman. We definitely don't do that with James Bond. It is almost a playful, joyful speculation to say who the next James Bond should be. You throw out Henry Cavill, you throw out, Idris Elba. You're like, it's fun when we do it then. But when it comes to T'Challa or Black characters, we can't. We we need to avoid that. But to answer your question, I would say Yahya Abdul-Mateen II,
Mhm.
Damson Idris, if they want to go younger, John David Washington, Trevante Rhodes. There are Yolan Noel. There are so many talented Black actors, and I would challenge people that are listening right now, if you find it difficult to think of who else could play the role, that's even more reason why we should recast, because Black actors don't usually get the opportunity to have these leading roles that are so game changing and become household names. That's why they need those MCU lead role opportunities, because the lead role, by the way, keep in mind, T'Challa is the very first leading Black character, not only in Marvel Comics, but also in the MCU. It's the first lead, not just a supporting character, lead. So we see what lead roles do for actors. Robert Downey Jr. was on the pitfall of his career
It's
until
true.
Iron Man. Nobody was checking for Tom Holland until he became Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Now he's got a bevy of roles
I'd never
at
even
his
heard of him
disposal,
before, you know?
right? Look at what it's doing for Chris Pratt. Now he's Mario. Like, he's doing
Yeah.
whatever he wants, So it's very clear that um a leading role is a prime opportunity for whoever takes over that role. And that's why I want us to be careful about trying to limit that to only Chadwick, because you're really closing the door for someone else. And again, we don't do that if we want to think about who the next Joker should be
Mhm.
or anyone else. So, like, let's not do that with T'Challa either.
No, I 100% agree, because, and especially, with you mentioning, him being the first, Black lead in the
Yeah,
MCU, that not recasting, that is removing that then,
exactly.
from the MCU. And man, yeah, and
It's a
that's,
step backwards. It's
yeah,
not forward progress.
exactly,
Like, it took 50 years to get T'Challa on screen. 50 years. And to remove him that soon? Come on now. Come on now.
Man, and now I can't get a Yaya out of my head as T'Challa, and I'm really liking that now.
I'm trying to
Yeah.
tell you, he is perfect. Go watch
Mhm,
Trial of the Chicago
mhm,
7. Go watch this man work. I'm telling you, he is super underrated.
mhm. Yeah, he definitely is. I've been watching his career with as Palpatine would say, with great anticipation. I'm very looking forward to seeing him as Morpheus in the Matrix. I think he's just gonna kill it. Man.
Agreed.
Mhm. Man, well, as we finish up here, what would you, if you could sit down and talk directly, to Kevin Feige right now, and you had a message that you wanted to say to him exactly, in a couple of sentences, what would that be?
Oh man. I think I would first of all thank him. If I'm talking to Kevin Feige, if I'm talking to Nate Moore, I want to thank them for making Black Panther a thing in the first place. I don't want to take anything away from them in terms of what they have given us. They put their money where their mouth was, right? Like, they put Black Panther as being one of the highest paid, highest, um, uh, the budget was like one of the highest for an all black film. So I would thank them first and foremost for believing in Black Panther. I would caution them, uh, and to thinking about the long term impact, and to really reconsider the direction that they're going in. I understand that they say they want to explore the world of Wakanda, and I understand that they want to um, elevate and expand the supporting characters. But I would say that, kind of like what Captain America said, we don't trade lives, and we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't elevate, let's say, Shuri at the expense of T'Challa. That's not even close to what the comic books did. The comic books elevated everyone. Some people could take a step back. they could take a step to the side and do what they got to do, but everything should be elevated at the same time. And I'm sorry, following up a blockbuster, cultural, impactful movie like the first Black Panther and tell us, hey, here's a movie with world building and supporting characters. No, that's a Disney Plus series. That's not a blockbuster follow-up sequel. So I would tell them, hey, please really strongly reconsider their decision. It is totally understandable. Everyone knows how difficult of a position this is for them. But go look at what Chadwick's work really said about the value he put into T'Challa. He cared about Wakanda. He cared about all the other characters too. But let's not put T'Challa on the side and make him an expendable Black character that can easily be replaced with whatever random substitution. Please don't. And think about the kids. If anything, if forget everything I just said, think about the kids. Like seriously, kids should be your main focus. That's it. That's exactly what I wouldn't even tell them all the other stuff. I just say think about the children and what you're going to do and how that's going to affect them at the end of the day. And I would highly caution, please don't think that you need to teach Black people lessons in pain, death, and loss. We don't need that lesson at all.
Very well said. Well, where can people join this movement? Where can people like get in line behind you and raise the standard?
Sure. Hey, change.org/recast T'Challa. Go ahead, sign the petition, share it. I know a lot of people don't really feel like petitions mean very much, but let me tell you, petitions get the foot in the door. Petitions get the conversation started. Petitions get things trending. That's what signing this petition does. Marvel is listening. It is an absolute lie if they say they're not. It's because of this petition that this has made it to TMZ, Good Morning America, People.com, Entertainment Weekly, you name it, it's out there because of this petition. So every signature matters. I think as of the recording right now, we're approaching 45,000 signatures. I think we're only like a couple hundred away. So yes, every signature matters. And yeah, we deserve the right to be heard at the very least, regardless, by the way, of whatever Marvel says. It doesn't matter what Marvel says. You can still have your opinion heard. And I also want to and I'm sorry for going over a little bit here,
No
but I
worries.
want to remind people Marvel can do whatever they want to do. They change scripts all the time. They stop production all the time. They've changed entire plots. Spider-Man, that was changed entirely. They alter endings all the time. So please do not think that if you sign this petition, it's meaningless because they've already started. They can do whatever they want. Trust me.
No, and I would definitely, I would definitely say to people, to anyone, out there who says like, oh, it's, this isn't going to change anything, whatever. Another example that I would give you guys is the Snyder Cut. That I would say
Yeah.
Warner Brothers officially said it is a dream. We are never releasing this. That was from the studio head said that, and
Right.
and it was just released a few months ago.
Right.
So it's
Right.
like,
Right.
but it's like
Change is possible.
yeah, change is possible, and when the consumer wants something, and especially Marvel and Kevin Feige, they listen to their fans, they listen to their consumers very, very closely.
Yep.
So because yeah, I mean, another quick one, Green
Sure.
Goblin was not supposed to be in Tom Holland's universe. They said in the beginning we're not going to revisit Green Goblin, and here he is flying
Look
in.
at that. Look at that.
So so yeah, definitely there's always hope, and there is always a chance to move things. So definitely everybody go out there and sign the petition and get your name heard. And
there you go.
So where can they follow you and find your film critic work?
Sure. Look, you can just Google E-Man's movie reviews. It's just like He-Man without the H. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. and you can do that on at Emans Reviews. I'm everywhere and anywhere. Feel free to drop by. I mean, the YouTube channel, you can definitely get all the reviews. We have the live chats every Friday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. It is a blast. You do not want to miss that. You definitely want to come and follow on Facebook. You want to come for the memes. Just come for the movie memes and have a good laugh every day. And of course, follow me everywhere else. But yeah, at Emans Reviews, you can't miss it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and sharing this mission of yours. I think it's fantastic, and I wish you all the luck in the world. And honestly, I don't even think you need the luck. You got the fans behind you, and that's way more powerful.
I'll take it.
All right, man.
Thank you so much.
Okay.